Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's great to be with you again for our series, Clarity in a Time of Crisis, the Travel Sentiment Study that we're delighted to have been working on with Longwoods International for the last 7+ months. We're looking at research here. You can see field November the 4th. My name's Chris Adams. I look after research and insights at Miles Partnership, and I'm delighted again to be joined by Amir Elon, President and CEO of Longwoods International. So I'll pass over to Amir here in a moment, and then I'll come back with just a few comments at the end. Just a reminder, please visit our Clarity in a Time of Crisis Communication Center, which has got all the recordings of webinars from a huge variety of partners. We've got aggregation of research, all the results from this Longwoods research, and we've combined and summarized a whole range of other resources for you. We also put out every week, in addition to the full slide set, this 2-page summary. I just wanted to highlight, we actually ran it yesterday, Funding for Tomorrow. That is a aggregation of the 2 very large research studies conducted in both North America and Europe. So you can visit that URL right there to look at the 14-page summary of those 2 research studies, the webinar, recording, and a whole range of other resources. It's about the future options and opportunities for DMO and tourism funding. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Amir. What are we seeing, Amir, in terms of the results?
Well, thank you, Chris. Well, jumping right in, it's sadly a couple key indicators have gone down. We'll talk about those in a minute, but despite the strong surge in new cases of COVID here in the US, we are seeing some key indicators holding steady. So kind of a mixed bag. Let's talk about it. 69% of travelers planning to travel in the next 6 months either have or are in the process of changing their travel plans. That's been relatively consistent to what we've been seeing. Almost half have reduced their travel plans in some form or fashion, with a little bit over a third canceling a trip altogether. And then just under a third continue to change their travel from flying to drive destinations, and still a significant amount of cancellation of international travel plans being shifted to domestic travel plans here. So let's move on to the trend lines. As you can see, as I said, we've really been holding steady here with travelers planning to change their travel here. I think, we've kind of plateaued over the last couple months until we get closer to a vaccine, which obviously this week we've heard some major news about that. We're not going to see that significantly go the other way at this point. Then when we're looking at the trend lines, when we overlay those who've reduced travel plans in the light blue versus those who canceled their trip completely in the dark blue, you can see that the delta continues to grow between the 2 of these, and that reducing travel plans are on the rise. So again, those short regional getaways continue to grow in popularity, and cancellations are down. But at this point now, as we get into the holiday travel season, part of that is also that some people just haven't booked any travel plans into early Q1 as well. When we're looking at the trend of regional drive travel, that's been very consistent from day one. And of course, here's the opportunity to capture some market share for those American travelers that would typically go abroad and get them to fall in love with your product in your backyard, et cetera. And if you're familiar with our ongoing study, you know that we're always asking about 3 key factors that would impact the decision to travel in the next 6 months. And the transportation costs and the economic concerns continue to be very low compared to the fear of the pandemic. When we look at the fear of the pandemic, though, again, despite the record-setting surge in volumes of new cases, we are still seeing this hold steady, right? Just very close to the 50% there. Part of this, of course, there's been, amongst American travelers, there's been a significant group that has done some traveling, that have taken short trips or getaways and so forth, even day trips. And there's a certain comfort, they've kind of gotten okay with a certain comfort level of risk. So there's some of that mindset that has shifted traveling within the pandemic. But then, of course, again, as you can see, there's still half that are saying, no, this is really going to seriously impact my plans. And then on the economic concerns, again, not a question of whether or not I can afford to travel. It's about how and when I'm going to travel. And when we ask that question, ever since the very beginning of this survey, every single time, are you going to be traveling in the next 6 months? And you can see the roller coaster that we have taken. Very back in March 11th, 87% said I'm going to go. Yeah, this pandemic thing may not be as bad as we think it is. And of course, we knew different. But as bad as the pandemic has gotten, you never ever saw less than 2/3 of American travelers telling us that they are going to travel in the next 6 months, speaking to a huge ball of pent-up demand, right? Until this past week. And when you look at the record surges and all the news stories about the pandemic, remember this was done just before Pfizer and other medical manufacturers had their big announcements this week. We dropped 8 points in just one wave here. Now, I will say one data point does not a trend make, but it was significant enough that we need to take note of this and see that definitely the news cycle medical cases are causing a shift, some serious concern for travelers. This is also the survey that we went back and asked about holiday travel plans. You remember back in early October, we asked the question as we were kind of turning the corner towards holiday season. Well, now it's pretty much upon us, Thanksgiving being just a couple weeks away. And you can see that 53% of American travelers now are not planning to take a trip this holiday season. They're staying put. Those who are traveling, you'll see about 4 in 10 are going to drive by car. About almost 2 out of 10 are going to be going by plane. And of course, no surprise that the Thanksgiving weekend holiday and the Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa season will get the lion's share of that travel that will take place. Again, comparatively, the news cycle is having its impact, right? We saw 5% growth in those who said we're staying put. Now we're 48% just a month ago. So that obviously causes concern. And again, slight drops because less people are going to be traveling. And again, no real shifts. People are still intending to go around the major holidays. And we also finally ask folks always questions, not just in relation to travelers, but citizens of their own community. And you can see that the divisions are still pretty distinct between those feeling safe dining and shopping locally, those feeling safe traveling outside their community, and on the issue of welcoming visitors back to our community. If you may recall that we also in the last wave started asking questions because we felt we were now at the right point about intent to travel until there's a vaccine. And you see 36% of American travelers are basically saying, 34% of American travelers are saying we are not going anywhere really until there is a vaccine that's readily available. Hopefully their confidence got boosted this week with some good news, and we'll see on there. But again, despite you saw a couple of those major indicators about travel planning going down and all the news about the surge in cases, these residential type of questions really stayed steady still. Support for welcoming back visitors. Again, we're not, it's hovering around 40%. We're not at the 50% threshold by any means, but it did not dip. And again, same thing, feeling safe traveling outside my community. It's really held steady for the last month and a half here. And same thing in feeling safe dining and shopping locally. There's now a large enough cohort of Americans that, their communities for the most part where limited dining is allowed, but have taken advantage of it, and they're going back again and again, which is, as we know, is the first steps of economic development, tourism industry recovery here for our communities. So the good news is we've seen we've seen things hold steady, even though the major concerns are still ongoing. So Chris, why don't you wrap it up for us here, my friend?
Thanks very much, Amir. And yes, mixed results there. Obviously, all driven by the reality that this is a health crisis. And so these changes in COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and the news around it is going to continue to impact travel plans of all types. Potentially, we could see the perverse relationship between good news on the vaccine to an increasing number of travelers indicating that they perhaps want to defer travel until there is a greater certainty around that vaccination option or some sort of breakthrough on therapeutics. In the immediate term, supporting and engaging with locals and their visiting friends and relatives, and really doing everything we can to support local businesses over what's going to be obviously a tough few months is going to be absolutely key. And we've emphasized in the past and want to emphasize again, clear, consistent, easy to understand health and safety information is absolutely critical. There's still a lot of confusion out there, uncertainty and concern. So we obviously want to minimize those impediments as much as possible. So all these resources, of course, are available both on Longwood's site and our site. And thank you so much, Amir, for joining us. We look forward to connecting in a couple of weeks.
Thank you again.